And now we'll discuss SC 560 subsequent events. As always, we'll first see the objectives of the auditor. He has to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to the events occurring between the date of financial statement and date of auditor's report. Date of financial statement is the date of the end of latest period covered in the financial statement, that is audited period last date. From that date to the auditor's report, that is when the auditor had signed the auditor's report, that require adjustment, that this event is an adjusting event or a disclosure. If it is not an adjusting event, what he has to do? He has to obtain audit evidence which is sufficient and appropriate, and respond appropriately to the facts that came to know to the auditor after the date of auditor's report that may be caused the auditor to amend the auditor's report. Okay, this is until the auditor's report, date of the auditor's report, and he has to respond appropriately. He need not adjust the auditor's report, or he need not ask the management with regards to the financial statements, or else just he had to respond to the facts that have come to know with regards to the any kind of events after the date of auditor's report, which would amend the auditor's report. And the date of approval of financial statement is that on that date where the financial statements are prepared was taken responsibility for those financial statement. Those who have prepared the financial statement, who has responsibility to prepare financial statements? Management. So when management takes the responsibility of those financial statement, that date is known as date of approval of financial statements. When date of financial statements are issued, when financial statements were made available to third parties like regulatory authorities, shareholders, etc. And coming to the definition of subsequent events are events occurring between the date of financial statement, that is the end of the audited financial year, from that date to the end of auditor's report, and the facts that known to the auditor after the date of the auditor's report. This includes both all the objectives here. Here from the period, they are talking about the period, and here they were talking about the facts. So both were subsequent events only. And the financial statements may be affected by certain events that occur after the date of financial statement. There are two types. There were two types of subsequent events. One is adjusting event, and the second one is non-adjusting event. When the condition that existed at the date of financial statement, those were the adjusting events which require changes in the financial statements. And those who do not provide any kind of evidence at the date of financial statement, and those events arose after the date of financial statements, were non-adjusting events which require disclosures. And with that said, we'll move on to the 560 case scenario, what the auditor shall do. What was asked in the what he has to be do in the objectives, he has to do that in the standards. Obtain understanding of the procedures management has established to ensure subsequent events. What he has to do, he has to understand how management is establishing, or what the procedures were done by the management in order to identify the subsequent events. Second thing, inquire the management that subsequent events had occurred which affect the financial statement, whether subsequent events were identified or not. Second thing, whether they affect the financial statements or not. Third thing, reading of minutes of meetings that were held after the date of financial statements, and reading the entity's latest subsequent interim financial statement, that is the subsequent year's first quarter financial reports has to check after the date of the auditor's report, but before the date of financial statements were issued to a third party, a fact became to know. This is second point in the objectives. Yeah, he has to respond appropriately. What he has to do, and a fact comes to know that he should amend the auditor's report. What the auditor shall do, he some in second point, how he has to respond, that he has to discuss with the management, determine he has to determine whether the financial statements require an amendment or not. In his belief, his audit report has to be amended. He's discussing with that management and asking the management whether this require an amendment in financial statement as well, and inquire how management addressed that matter in financial statement if at all the amendment was made. And when management does not amend but the auditors believes they need to be amended. Here you see, auditors believe that the auditor's report has to be amended. And now here, auditor is believing that his audit report has to be amended as well as the financial statement also have to be amended. Then what the auditor should do? If auditor's report has not had been provided, okay, what that he has to do when the auditor report was not handed over to the management and we had not signed, what he has to do, he has to modify the report under SC 705. If he had not provided that to the entity, what had already provided, he had provided to the management the auditor report, what the auditor shall do, the auditor shall notify the management not to issue to the third parties, not to issue the financial statements and all. If the entity, without those necessary amendments, had issued the financial statements, then what the auditor has to do? He has to prevent reliance, he has to take appropriate action to prevent reliance on the auditor's report, like a tweet with regards to that, or consult the legal advice. Okay, this is with regards to the what auditor's responsibilities. First thing, he has to know how the management is doing the subsequent events and how they would affect the financial statement, and he has to read the minutes and read the latest interim financial reporting statements. And this is come the second point in the objective, that facts have known and the auditor need to amend audit report. What he has to do, he has to discuss with the management and ask the financial statement have to be amended or not, and if so amended, how would it impact financial statement. And if auditor also believes that the financial statements have to be amended, if the audit report was not prepared and if it's not provided to the entity, he has to modify the report, because the audit report is still in his hand. He could modify that. And if he had already given to the entity, what he could do, he could ask the management not to issue to the financial statements or audit report to the third parties. If the management had issued without those amendments, then what the auditor has to, he has to respond appropriately to prevent reliance on the audit report or take a legal advice. And now, or with regards to the audit report amendment, amend the auditor's report to include an additional date restricted to that amendment. So he could attach that auditor's amendment paragraph or a kind of extract of any kind of report or a small report, additional date after the date of auditor report, and an additional date could be made only with regards to that amendment, and provide a new or amended audit reports. He could just add that amendment, or he could wholly modify the entire report and create a new auditor's report, includes the statement of emphasis of matter paragraph or others matter paragraph with regards to the such amendment. And that's it, we have completed SA 560.